Hey everyone. What I wanted to talk about today is planning out your photo shoot. Now, I think planning is important no matter what shoot you're doing, but it's especially important, in my opinion, when you're taking something new in. So, what we're going to talk about today is reenactment. Now, there are different aspects to a reenactment that are important to note. But the best way to figure out what you need to pay attention to is to talk to reenactors and also see what it is that they post on their Instagram, their Facebook posts. What is it that's out there on the internet that they thought was important and therefore posted for everybody to see? So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, of course, is what equipment are you going to bring? The first will inform the second. Once you know what it is you're going to shoot and where you're going to be able to shoot from, then you can start to get on to other aspects of your equipment. So, as you can see here, I broke this down into two separate groups. That part that's the military part of it, and that's the part that's the life part of it. Now, one thing you'll realize about reenactors is they take great care in not only paying attention to what their outfits should look like and what equipment they would use, but also down to the cutlery, how they comport themselves, what the tasks were at the time, and how they would handle them. So it's important to get all of that captured when you're doing something like the big reenactment that'll happen in the summer, but also the fort itself has daily routines that they go through that you're able to see and capture. But again, it's important in the details. Now, the other part of it is, of course, the battles, the military outfits that they wear, the things that they do during those. Now, as you can see in these photographs here, there's a cannon. Now, just as with the cannon and you got muskets, they're going to pay close attention to their care and to the detail of those objects. So you want to also capture the detail in the equipment that they're using on both the civilian side and the military side of what's going on. Now, remember that families had a tendency to travel with the troops. So that's why you're going to see women in the camps. There could be kids around. And in both the reenactments and the dailies, you can see that reflected in what the fort puts on for their programs. Now that we know about what we're looking at, what are we going to need? Well, we're going to need to have a camera. Back in the day, I was thinking about a 28 to 80 that I had. Probably use my 24 to 70 that I've got. I've got my new 100 to 400. So you can see these are a little out of date. I did update it with the 128 gig cards that I've got. Um, Now, probably not for most of what I do over the course of the year at the fort will I need a microphone. But I have it here with question marks after it because I need to pay attention to the type of event that's going on. They have musical events. The fort personnel were informed both at the fort and in battle by the drums and the fifes that would be accompanying them. They would signal what they needed to do on the field. In addition, it would signal what stage of the day they were in. Is it time to come in for food? Is it time to gather together so that they can be inspected prior to the day's activities? If they're going to be doing something like that, then I'm probably going to want to have a microphone so I can record that event. Now, if I'm going to record, then I want a tripod or a monopod, something that I can help stabilize the camera because I'm going to be holding it in a particular position for a while. If you've used um, telephoto glass that's basically like prime glass, it's heavy. So while my 100 to 400 is not, it is a non-fixed focal length. It slides from 5.6 to 7.1. It's a lighter piece of glass because the aperture, the size of the aperture, is a ratio to the size of the glass. So a 7.1 means that it would be 400 over 7.1. So it's 400 millimeters divided by 7.1. That's the biggest that glass needs to be for the aperture to be the size that it's saying. So when I'm using my 24 to 70, it's a much beefier lens. The glass is much bigger. It's a 2.8. So it's either 24 over 2.8 or it's a 70 over 2.8. So that has more weight to it. And when you've been shooting all day and then you go to grab something that you're going to video, you're going to want some more stability. If it's something that happens early on, you can probably get away with it. But again, you're going to be up and down with that lens all day long. Probably not spending too much time sitting, but spending more time going from event to event to event or scene to scene. So having some way to stabilize is important. Personally, I prefer a monopod for the simple fact that it's easier to carry. You can actually use it like a walking stick if you really want to, and it's much faster to set up than a traditional tripod. That said, if you're going to be doing something like they're going to be bringing out the fife and drums for you to see, you're going to have more time to set up. You can find a nice area, set the tripod up, and get ready to both film and audio record the event. Now, you'll notice on here I have key contacts and workflows. For me, that workflow is going to be where is everything going to be during the event? For example, during the Harvest Festival that comes up in the fall, there are going to be a series of vendors. Well, I'm going to want to get the pictures of the vendors. There's going to be events that happen down by that area as well as up by the fort. And the reason I say by that area, they're down by the pavilion, which is down by the King's Garden, which is in a lower section of the fort proper. The fort itself is up on the hill. This is down below that. So there'll be some moving around, but there's a lot of things that happen down there by the vendors to pull people down to see the vendors, obviously. And while people are down looking at the goods that the vendors have, they can also see what's going on. There's also a food truck down there as well, so you can go have a nice barbecue lunch sitting on the picnic tables that are there in this beautiful area and watch what's going on just over to the side. So I would need to know which zones I'm going to be in and how far away I'm going to be from the action. Now, when they're doing a cannon demonstration, they will have the place marked off as to where you can be in relation to the cannon. For one particular area, when it's in the Sandy Redoubt, you're going to be at the tree line just a little bit before it. Or you're going to be by a safety line that they've got drawn when they're doing the daily ones. The redoubts are usually more special of an occasion that they're down there firing the cannon off. When they're doing reenactments, the cannon may actually be moved. But again, there's going to be a demarcation line of where the public can stand versus where the reenactors are going to be. When you're firing off the cannon, when you're firing off the musket, and you can see the flame coming out of the musket in that picture, they've got a little bit of wadding to hold things in place. That wadding is going to come out when it's fired. Now, while the wadding itself is not dangerous, it will be on fire. So it's just something you don't want to be anywhere near when it comes out. And for safety, they have you a lot further back than the reenactors are going to be. And again, that's for safety. The main goal that they're going to have is safety. So knowing that, I know that I should have my 100 to 400. Now, second battery was back at the time when I didn't have the grip on the camera, and I carried a second battery. Now with the grip on my R5, that takes two batteries in it, and for that reason alone, I think that the grips are a valuable thing to purchase, because you can shoot much longer without having to worry about swapping out your battery. And because it's a grip, you can also turn the camera into uh, from a landscape thing, a wide picture, to the portrait frame just by flipping it up, and your controls and everything are in the grip. So it's much easier to shoot a photo by using the grip. So my workflow is going to be, what zones am I going to be in? What am I going to need? When am I going to have to be there? And how far away am I going to be from the action? So that'll help me plan out both the timing of where I'm going to be, the amount of time I'm going to have between scene to scene, as well as which lens I'm going to be able to use. So when I'm going and I'm looking at them doing their life stuff, right? When they're out doing their individual activities, like pulling around goods or just hanging out, I can get away with my 24 to 70, right? I might also want the 24 to 70 when it comes to events like this. However, I'm going to be far enough away that my 100 is probably going to be good to get that wider angle because I'm going to be further away. So the timing, the lens changes, whether I'm going to need a tripod or a monopod, those kinds of things will go into my workflow. So I have an idea of what I'm going to do, where I'm going to do it, and when I'm going to do it. To me, it makes for a better shoot. For example, May 4th and 5th, they've got events coming up at the fort when the fort first opens. I will try to find out where things are going to be and what that's going to be. Now, they always publish an agenda. And because of my experience with the fort, I'll know what the area looks like that we're going into and also about where I'm going to be pushed back to, unless it's some new area that they haven't been in before, in which case I'll ask where the lines are going to be. So I can map that out, maybe using satellite images of the fort and surrounding area, but I'll figure out where I can be and what lenses I'm going to need. But having the plan to me is important because it'll make for a much less stressful shoot. I'll know when I need to change out the lenses. Now, that's not to say that things aren't going to come up. Nothing ever goes to plan. Something may come up that you just have to take a picture of. And I'll give you an example. I was at a talk that they were giving, showing off the new exhibit that they'd had. It was an archaeological look at what they can find around the fort. So we're not talking reenactments in military, but what can you actually find in the ground here around the fort and what they had found? Well, while I was doing that, there was this adorable little kid that went from one parent to another and just scampered across the floor, and I had to take a picture. All right. You're going to run across things like that. It wasn't a reenactment, it was just cute. So I grabbed a picture of it. But you're going to run across things like that, especially when you're talking about an event that's active. When you're shooting like a wedding or something like that, it's a little bit more fixed. You know where the bride and groom are going to be. You know the guests are going to sit during the wedding ceremony itself. The question will be what things are like at the celebration. But again, dance floor, people sitting at tables. It's a relatively controlled environment. Reenactment is controlled as well, but there's so many different things that you can get pictures of them cooking, of them making candles, churning butter, making meals over the fire pits that they have. The horse is being used to uh, both convey the officers around, but perhaps carrying stuff as well. The oxen's pulling the sleds with either military equipment on it or just supplies or just wood that they need to help bolster up or cut up for firewood, for example. So there's a lot of little things that you're going to see that are just things you're going to have to catch. But by having a plan and knowing what's going to happen and when, you've got probably 70 to 80% of your day planned out. And the other 30% can be reserved for the fast lens swaps, having to set things up a little bit quicker than you anticipated, or just finding something that normally wouldn't be caught. Looking for those little things around that normally could get missed. That's what I got for you guys this week. Um, I hope you guys get the opportunity to plan out when you photograph, and I will talk to you all next week.